Well, today guys, I want to talk about a topic that I don't see covered too much, and that is which heroes are best for countering choke points. Some maps have more choke points than others. I think Temple of Anubis is just like choke point galore, but for those who don't know what that term means, what that term choke point means, basically it's just when one or more sides can't really progress through the map to achieve their objective. You probably have seen the scenarios where an attack tries to take the point and defense just has it on lock, and it can get pretty difficult to get around. Luckily for us though, I feel like the maps are pretty well balanced in Overwatch. They tend to be a little bit more offense favored anyways, so it's not terribly too difficult to get around choke points if you know what you're doing. However, there are certain heroes that are really good at taking out choke points, and I want to put them out into separate categories, okay? You got your wall makers, and you got your siegers. And siegers, is that even a real word? Anyways, to kind of clarify on what I mean by these terms, and there's certainly more different types of heroes that I'm kind of just self-categorizing here, but just to kind of start with those two first. Wall makers would be types of heroes that can set up barriers or walls, literally, like what you would get with Mei, to help your team push the point. Now, pushing the point can be straightforward, like what you would have with Reinhardt, and just kind of push straight on into the enemy and hope to God that your shield lasts long enough and your teammates help you. Or it could be a little bit more subtle, like with Mei and her ice wall. Now, certain maps, almost every map, has some way to get around these choke points, but they're oftentimes just a little bit out of reach. With Mei, she is perfect because you don't actually have to stand at your wall to cast it. You can cast it from a distance, and you can pretty much block off incoming fire while your allies divert into that side route. It's super helpful on Temple of Anubis, where it can be a freaking meat grinder. So if you can set up your wall right on the left side of the choke point, you can often funnel your entire team left, and your team should be able to get through before the barrier or the ice wall goes down. You can achieve a similar effect with Reinhardt or Winston, but I feel like Mei is probably the most efficient one out of the three, in my opinion, just because her barrier can be casted from a distance, so she doesn't actually have to put herself in danger. So building up a good defensive line to kind of push forward with, or to at least momentarily divert your allies into a side route, is fantastic as far as getting around a choke point. However, you would also need some sort of sieging type hero. Now, I've noticed that the most siegiest of all of these heroes tends to be Junkrat. And that is because he specializes in the art of hitting someone without them even seeing him, literally. He doesn't even have to have a line of sight. He can bounce his nades around doorways, across rooms. He's fantastic at taking out stationary targets or enemies that are holed up in a certain spot. The Riptide is also great, though it does require some skill and finesse as far as maneuvering it, so it comes down at a weird angle and enemies don't see it coming, because it does have limited HP. It's rather squishy, so they could stop it. The concussion nades are great for kind of unpositioning or depositioning enemies, if that's even a word. If all else, it could act as a way for you to get to higher vantage points or better vantage points, so you can kind of be able to rain down your nades a lot more efficiently, get to those spots you wouldn't normally be able to reach. All these things, I think, make Junkrat a great type of siege type hero. Now, another honorable mention would be Farah and Hanzo. They have projectile-based weaponry, so they don't actually have to stay within line of sight for too long to be able to do massive amounts of damage. Farah can do 120 with each of her rockets with splash damage. Hanzo can do 125 damage with an arrow. And not to mention, Hanzo can use his Sonic Arrow and Dragon Strike to spot enemies through walls at a choke point and hit them with the Dragon Strike through the walls, hopefully at an angle that they aren't expecting. Now, the third type of hero that I didn't mention initially, but I definitely do think deserves an honorable mention here, would be the flanking type heroes. Now, they don't actually contribute to the push, or wall building per se at the front lines of the choke points, but if you know the routes and you know the map, you can get around the enemy team a lot of the times and start capping and sort of harassing the back line. You can draw the attention of a couple of them by tapping the capture point or by killing one or two of them, and this gives your teammates a much easier time of pushing in because the enemies are pulled back, distracted with dealing with you. Now before I close this video, there are certainly hero specific strategies that you guys can implement, sort of like things like double Zarya, you know, having 4 bubbles on the field, just amazing for great pushes. People say that double Winston, double Lucio is also amazing, though I personally have not seen that work too often. I don't know, it just never worked out with me. But if you guys have any other sort of strategies or heroes that you think are great at taking out choke points, let me know down in the comments. I certainly did not mention them all just for the sake of brevity of this video. I don't want to go on for like 30 minutes talking about different counters and ways to get around choke points. But if you guys have any more suggestions, let me know down in the comments. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. If you found this video helpful at all, any way, shape, or form, hit that like button. And I guess until next time, guys, I'll see you around.